For over a decade now, most of the successful Fromsoftware titles have always included some form of multiplayer system, whether it was co-op or player versus player. You have probably encountered that while playing Demon Souls, the Dark Souls trilogy, Bloodborne, and will probably be a feature in Fromsoftware's upcoming game, Elden Ring. Fromsoftware's player versus player or PvP was not just a thing of the early or late 2000s, but it did kinda exist in the 90s. In 1997, Armored Core was the first Fromsoftware game that had a player versus player type mode, which was achieved through a PlayStation 1 link cable. But robots are very different from like Dark Souls, Demon Souls, and Bloodborne, so I'm just gonna skip to the next game, which is Shadowtower. When I look at it now, do you know what this reminds me of? I'm sure while browsing YouTube or Reddit, you might have come across the Dark Souls videos from other content creators that feature this arena type AI controlled boss versus boss or enemy versus boss or even like NPC versus NPC. Now imagine if there existed a PvP mode in Dark Souls or Demon Souls or Bloodborne where you and your friends could control some of the bosses or enemies and fight each other. And that is basically what the versus mode or creature mode in Shadowtower is. If you've never heard of this game, well, Shadowtower is a first-person dungeon crawler game with similar mechanics to Kingsfield, which was the first game released by Fromsoftware. Both of these games together were big inspiration for a lot of Fromsoftware titles, and they are also like some of my favorite games of all time. While I was working on this video, I was surprised to see that many people that have played this game or made videos about Shadowtower seem to overlook one aspect of the game, which was the versus mode. One thing that I found very interesting is that when I try to look up Shadowtower versus mode or Shadowtower creature mode, I can't seem to find any footage or videos about it. It's almost non-existent. People usually play the game once and then move on. But back in the late 90s, I used to play this mode with my brother and cousin, and we had a blast, even though I didn't know it was a Fromsoftware game because I couldn't speak good English or understand English at all. So now you might be wondering, how does this mode work? Well, as you play through the game, you'll come across different enemies, NPCs, and bosses that you'll need to defeat. Once you do so, these enemies will be displayed in something called the Creature Book, and they are also unlocked in the Creature mode that you can access through the main menu. The total number of enemies in the game is about 150, but only 120 of them can be played in the PvP mode. As you scroll through the list, you will notice a lot of enemies have very unique designs. Some of them are cool looking, while others look like stuff you would see in a nightmare. And I remember I used to be afraid of some of these enemies or the sounds that they made while you're exploring the game. If you previously played Demon Souls or Dark Souls games, you will see a lot of similarity between the enemy or boss designs in both of these games and Shadowtower. Here are some memorable enemies. First, we have a big knight with a large sword, kinda looks like the pursuer from Dark Souls 2. Then we have a large skeleton boss that is the Lord of Death World and the Undead in Shadowtower, which kind of reminds me of one particular boss in Dark Souls 1, which is Nito, in terms of his attacks and description of the boss. Then we have the Demon Warrior, an enemy that looks like the Copper Demon from Dark Souls 1, but without the legs and smaller swords, but they have the same color pattern. Then we have the Ebony Knight with his helmet that kind of looks like Garl Vinland's helmet from Demon Souls, and another boss in Dark Souls 2, but I can't pronounce his name. Then we have this half-lady, half-spider enemy that breathes fire, and let's not forget these mushroom guys from Dark Souls 1. And there are also many other enemies that kind of look familiar to you. The way this works is each player must load their save file with all the creatures that they have collected, and then choose the characters that they want to play as. Then you have to decide if you want to do a single fight or 3 different fights against each other. Once you start, each fight is about 30 seconds. There are no Estus chugging, there's no grass, there are no backstabs or parries, but some characters can use special abilities or magic. It's funny how this is the only mode of the game that has some music in it. The rest of the game has no music except for the intro, and is also in third person, unlike the story mode, which is all in first person. In this mode, you can only play as NPCs, enemies, and bosses, so you can't use your main character. It is also important to always look at the stats and characteristics of the creatures that you are going to choose, and make sure that they have multiple attacks and ability, because some of them have only one skill, or some of them can't move at all. And don't forget mobility. Mobility is your best friend. Some enemies can move very fast while some others are very slow. And the controls do require a little bit of adjusting before you get the handle of the game. The controls are a little bit rough. If this is your first time playing, your first match might look like this, where you're just gonna end up just spinning and missing and hitting the air and trying to figure out like which way is the direction that you're pointing at, and then the time will just run out. But after a couple of matches and once you adjust to the game, it's really fun to play around and use different enemies and test out their unique skills and abilities and their mobility. One thing you will notice that there are only 30 seconds per match, and if the time runs out, the player with the highest health would win. Otherwise it's a draw if your health is the same or if you didn't hit each other at all, and then it moves to the next battle. But here comes the fun of this mode, is the fact that not every enemy is very easy to get. Some of the enemies are very rare to find, so it's always fun to compete against, let's say, a friend or your cousin or brother and see who can get the most enemies or the unique and rare ones. So for example, some enemies have extremely rare spawn location or certain things that you have to do before they appear. So you'll be spending a lot of time trying to find these enemies or NPCs or bosses. I mean, even after playing the game so many times, I think I'm at 145 out of 150, and I'm missing 5 of them. Also, one of the NPCs you meet in the game and help her throughout her quest line, of course, a girl with a scythe and horns as well. Well, one thing you have to know about that character, she's probably the strongest creature in the game. Even in a 1v1 fight against the final boss, she can kill him in 2 hits, and can kill most of the enemies in 1 hit. But of course, if you go through her quest line and finish it, the final quest, she's just gonna disappear. She'll thank you and then she's gone. But if you actually attack her and kill her before you finish the quest, then you get to unlock her in your creature book, and then she can be played as a character. When I used to get my ass kicked all the time, so I just used her all the time to win any match. So this is basically the creature mode or the versus mode that existed back in 1998. Let me know down in the comments if you have ever played this mode or even heard of it. If not, then what are your thoughts about this mode? Do you like it? Do you hate it? If you enjoy this kind of content, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button for more Fromsoftware content in Elden Ring, because over the last couple of months I've went on a quest and decided to play every single Fromsoftware game on a quest to get every single Moonlight Blade or Moonlight Sword in every single game. And you'd be surprised to see what I found out in all of these games. So until next time.